You probably heard of Cecil the lion and Harambe the gorilla, but the only difference between those beautiful and endangered animals
and the leopards, elephants, and other threatened species that Donald Trump Jr.
with his brother Eric shoot for fun with their father's money and blessings
is that humans have given Cecil and Harambe a name.
But the deadly threat that Donald Trump poses to animals
doesn't just come out of the barrel of a gun, but out of the baseless and bizarre conspiracy theories that he espouses
on the most immediate danger to life on Earth in the last 65 million years.
Climate change is real, it is happening right now.
And it could lead to what is known as Earth's sixth mass extinction of animal species.
Not since our planet's collision with the asteroid that brought an end to the dinosaurs has life been disappearing from the face of the Earth at the rate we are witnessing today. But while Donald Trump has been known to reference the National Enquirer as a source of his conspiracy theories, NASA and 99.99% of the world's climate scientists have a different headline to report. You see, global overheating is not just a potential future threat, but a clear and present danger.
The Pentagon says it's a national security risk. Miami floods on a sunny day, and instead of doing anything about it, we've got elected officials throwing snowballs in the Senate. I think I got it, bro. It is crazy. What about our kids? What kind of stupid, short-sighted, irresponsible bull?
Whoa! There's no debate about the greenhouse effect, just like there's no debate about gravity. If someone throws a piano off the roof, I don't care what Sarah Palin tells you, get out of the way because it's coming down on your head.
I love when they say, I don't know anything about it, but
it's not true.
What we are talking about, if we do not get our act together, is major cities in the United States and countries around the world being underwater.
When the ocean rises just this much, this whole area will be underwater. And not just this area, that area. That's Miami. Billions of dollars, millions of people are going to have to move.
None of this is rhetoric, and none of it is hysteria. It is fact. Even the United States military knows it. The chief of the U.S. Navy's Pacific Command, Admiral Samuel Locklear, recently said that climate change is our single greatest security threat.
Damn. How is that possible? You see, growing food requires two things: a stable climate and rainfall. But as temperature rises make fresh water sources evaporate, major American cities from Los Angeles to Houston to Washington, D.C. risk seeing their taps run dry. Farms from California across to the American heartland that feed much of the entire world's population are already facing a state of emergency with their water supply and experiencing crop failures. And global overheating is already leading to increased warfare in places like Syria, where a civil war sparked by the worst drought in that country's history has led to the chaos and instability that have allowed ISIS to thrive. But while human refugees from flooded cities and disaster areas might be able to find new homes, and responsible government action can help us prepare for and prevent the worst effects of water and food shortages, that same scarcity and upheaval could mean the end of the road for wild animals whose habitat has already been reduced to the last few oases where Eric and Donald Trump Jr. shoot and kill them for fun. Species like the critically endangered rhinos, African lions, and American jaguars, one of 111 species whose last remaining habitat will be cut in half and massively damaged by the building of the Trump wall. Species like the very symbol of the Republican Party, the same elephants that Donald Trump supports the killing of for sport, are struggling and dying of thirst as we speak. Arctic animals are left to drown while swimming for days at a time in search of ice, while countless animals are facing starvation and heat stroke amidst record-breaking temperatures and wildfires burning down forests with increasing ferocity. All right, so some of you may say, fine. So what's the alternative? Is Hillary really any better? Many may doubt the promises she makes, and that's fair for any aspiring president. All right, fine, so let's forget about words for a second and simply look at actions.
In 2006, while representing the state of New York, Hillary received a rating of 100% from the political watchdog for animal issues, for voting in favor of or co-authoring every single bill to protect animals that came before the U.S. Senate.
Although to be fair, that's a record she shares with someone else who I'd like to quote for a second.
Hillary Clinton is listening to the scientists. Donald Trump, like most Republicans, sadly and tragically is choosing to reject science.
And what's wrong with that, Neil deGrasse Tyson?
The problem comes about is if you are in denial of an emergent scientific truth and you wield power. That's a recipe for disaster. When someone, an elected official, stands in denial of climate change, something that scientists have been telling them now for decades, and they're going to create legislation in response to that, that is the end of an informed democracy.
I didn't know we'd be talking to an actual scientist. And speaking of what politicians do with their power, as Secretary of State, Clinton prioritized the combat of illegal trafficking in endangered species, action she plans to expand from the White House, especially considering those same organized crime networks are often interconnected with terrorist groups, illegal arms, and sex slavery rings. Hillary was also part of the administration that advanced the greatest environmental progress in human history, signing into law the biggest cuts in greenhouse gas emissions ever made, and protecting over 265 million acres of American land and oceans, along with all of the wild animals that live within them. But all the historic laws passed, all the international treaties signed would be undone on day one by a President Trump.
We're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement. Department of Environmental Protection. We are going to get rid of it in almost every form.
My hair look okay? Got a little spray. Give me a little spray. You know, you're not allowed to use hairspray anymore because it affects the ozone. You know that, right? So if I take hairspray and if I spray it in my apartment, which is all sealed, and you're telling me that affects the ozone layer? Yes. I say, no way, folks, no way. When I put on that helmet, and by the way, look, it really is mine, right? Look at me, right? Right here. Give me a mirror.
Meanwhile, President Clinton would not only protect the progress we finally made, but build upon it in ways that don't just turn down the cooking temperature of our world, but will also help minimize toxic and lethal smog in our cities, and have already helped make the solar and renewable energy industries into one of the fastest growing job creators in the United States.
This is bigger than any movie. This is the challenge of our time.
For those of you who might sit out if Bernie Sanders doesn't get the nomination, that's your choice. Yeah. Don't be assholes about it.
That future will be shaped more by what happens on November 8th in voting booths across our nation than by any other event in the world.
Listen to the science.
If not for our generation, then for his.
You mother better not this up.
For all animals.
For all animals.
Por todos los animales.
For all people.
Oh, and as a little PS, for anyone wondering what you could do right now and beyond the election to make as big a difference as possible and most effectively combat the climate crisis, by far the largest source of environmental destruction in the average person's lifestyle, ironically, comes from our consumption of animals. Reducing the land area used for animal agriculture will not only cut the rate of extinction, water contamination, and greenhouse gas emissions, it will also help free up space that can be left alone to regenerate into wilderness. Wilderness that removes CO2 from the atmosphere as it comes back to life. And that may be our only hope to bring us back from the brink and begin reversing some of the dangerous levels of heat-trapping gases already in the atmosphere. And at the same time, give critically endangered species a chance at survival. Now, I'm not asking you to stop eating meat. Hell no. What I am saying is to just give a new hamburger a bite and maybe try some delicious vegan meats and other plant-based alternatives, 1, 2, maybe. Remember, cows, pigs, And the various birds that people eat are all as innocent and all have as much of a right to live and live freely as any of their wild cousins who were lucky enough to be born outside of a cage. More on that in the video details below. Thank you for hearing us out. Now please share this message and let's defeat the greatest threat to animals and the greatest danger to human life before this unnatural disaster who openly fantasizes about using nuclear weapons becomes the most powerful man on earth. Thank you.